When God is preparing you for a major breakthrough, it rarely feels like preparation. It often feels like confusion, loss, discomfort, and delay. But what you must understand is that God does his greatest work in hidden places. He refines you in private before he reveals you in public. He stretches your faith, shapes your mindset, and strengthens your spirit because he's not just giving you a blessing. He's making you into the kind of person who can handle one. You see, before God promotes you, he purges you. Before he expands your territory, he elevates your thinking. And before he gives you increase, he allows you to experience decrease so you learn what truly matters. If you've been feeling uncomfortable lately, if it feels like everything that used to work suddenly doesn't, don't panic. That's not punishment. That's preparation. The discomfort is divine. God will often make your current level feel too small because he knows you'll never leave comfort unless he makes comfort unbearable. So that frustration you feel, that's a sign your spirit has outgrown your surroundings. When God is preparing you for something major, he'll often call you into seasons of isolation. People will start fading away, relationships will shift, and connections you thought were permanent will suddenly dissolve. But isolation isn't rejection, it's protection. God separates you from people who can't go where he's taking you. Not everyone has the capacity to carry your calling. Sometimes he hides you because he's healing you. Sometimes he separates you so he can speak to you. So don't mourn who left. Thank God for the clarity that came when they did, because when you're truly walking toward destiny, silence becomes sacred. God starts training your ear to hear his voice above the noise. Then come the closed doors, the ones that make you question everything. You prayed, you fasted, you believed, and still the opportunity slipped through your hands. But here's the truth. A closed door from God is not rejection, it's redirection. God doesn't shut doors to deprive you, he shuts them to deliver you. He's saving you from what you thought you wanted so he can give you what you actually need. Sometimes he says no because the timing is off. Other times he says no because the blessing you're asking for would have broken you if he gave it too soon. So trust his timing, even when you can't trace his hand. What looks like loss is often the setup for the next level. And while you're waiting, don't be surprised when the warfare intensifies. The pressure you feel isn't proof you're failing, it's proof you're close. The enemy doesn't attack what isn't advancing. When you start breaking patterns, renewing your mind, and walking in obedience, all of hell starts to panic. But remember, resistance is confirmation. When spiritual warfare increases, it means spiritual promotion is near. The enemy is trying to make you give up right before your breakthrough manifests. But instead of giving up, stand firm, pray harder, speak life, worship in the middle of the storm because worship confuses the enemy. Every test you pass in faith is building the strength you'll need for your next season. See, breakthrough isn't something God gives lightly. It's something he prepares you for through growth. And that growth is never easy. You'll be tested in your patience, your obedience, your integrity, and your faith. God will put you in positions where you have to trust him without evidence. He'll ask you to keep believing even when there's no visible sign of change. Because breakthrough doesn't just require power, it requires character. And God cares more about what's happening inside you than what's happening around you. He's shaping your heart, teaching you stewardship, and stretching your faith, because the blessing he's about to release demands maturity. If you can stay faithful in the process, you'll be prepared for the promise. Then suddenly, after all the pruning, all the pressure, all the patience, God begins to shift things. Opportunities you didn't apply for start finding you. People you never met start speaking your name in rooms you've never entered. That's not coincidence, that's divine orchestration. God's favor will go before you and open doors no man can shut. When the season of preparation is complete, everything will start aligning with supernatural precision. The people, the timing, the opportunities, all of it will converge in divine alignment. That's when you realize that every delay had a purpose. Every tear was watering your harvest. Every closed door was redirecting you toward destiny. God wasn't withholding anything from you. He was holding it for you until you were ready. You'll look back and see that nothing was wasted. The heartbreak, the losses, the disappointments, all of it was training. God used it all to build your faith, refine your focus, and position you for your breakthrough. So if you're in a season where things don't make sense, don't lose heart. Don't mistake preparation for punishment. Don't confuse pruning with rejection. God is positioning you for something beyond what you can imagine. The breakthrough you've been praying for is closer than it looks, but you must endure the process. Stay obedient when it's hard. Stay consistent when it's slow. Keep sowing, keep believing, keep showing up, because when your preparation meets God's timing, manifestation is inevitable. God is not late. He's strategic, and right now he's setting the stage for your breakthrough. The pain has purpose. The waiting has meaning. The warfare has a timeline. When your faith outlasts your frustration, heaven releases what it's been holding. So stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. You're not being buried, you're being planted. And in due season, what's been hidden will bloom. Your breakthrough isn't coming someday, it's already in motion. God is preparing you, positioning you, and perfecting you for the promise he already spoke. So hold on, your major breakthrough is closer than you think. When God is getting ready to move you into destiny, he never does it through comfort. He does it through disruption. The discomfort before destiny is one of the clearest signs that heaven is shifting your season. You start to feel restless in places that used to bring you peace. The job that once felt like purpose starts to feel like a prison. The friendships that once motivated you now drain you. That's not by accident. That's divine agitation. God will make what's familiar feel frustrating, so you stop settling for what's good and start reaching for what's great. Discomfort is God's way of signaling growth. You can't develop in comfort because comfort produces complacency. Growth requires stretching, and stretching is never pleasant. When you ask God to take you higher, he has to increase your capacity, and that means he has to pull you beyond what's easy. The same way muscles tear before they grow, your faith often feels strained before it strengthens. So when life starts to stretch you, don't resist it. That stretching is evidence that God is enlarging your capacity for the blessing he's about to release. Every destiny moment begins with discomfort. Look at the pattern throughout Scripture. God always disrupts before he delivers. He told Abraham to leave his homeland without a destination. He allowed Joseph to be thrown into a pit before he placed him in the palace. He let Moses wander in the wilderness before leading him to deliver a nation. What do all these stories have in common? Discomfort preceded destiny. God doesn't move you with convenience, he moves you with conviction. He shakes you out of what's temporary so you can step into what's eternal. Sometimes the discomfort doesn't come from outside circumstances. It comes from within. You start feeling an internal shift, a divine dissatisfaction that you can't explain. You can't rest the way you used to. You can't tolerate certain conversations anymore. You can't ignore the pull in your spirit calling you to something higher. That's God stirring up your purpose. That's the Spirit whispering, you were made for more. Don't try to silence that feeling. Lean into it. The unease you feel is not a curse. It's confirmation that your current level is too small for your calling. Discomfort often exposes dependency. When things stop working the way they used to, God is teaching you to depend on him, not on systems, people, or routines. The discomfort drives you back to prayer, back to his word, back to obedience. It's in that space of surrender where transformation happens. Because destiny doesn't come through striving. It comes through submission. And sometimes the only way God can get you to surrender is by letting comfort collapse. So if you're feeling uncomfortable right now, if it feels like everything in your life is shifting and shaking, don't run from it. Don't question your value because of it. God hasn't abandoned you. He's advancing you. The pressure you feel isn't punishment, it's purpose. You're being refined, not rejected. God is pruning you for promotion. The discomfort you're experiencing is proof that destiny is near. Every great move of God begins with a period of discomfort because God never lets you enter a new dimension with an old mindset. When life starts getting uncomfortable, lift your hands and say, Lord, I trust you in the tension, because the place of discomfort is the birthplace of destiny. You may not see it yet, but what feels like breaking is actually birthing. What feels like an ending is the start of a new beginning. The pressure you're under today is preparing you for the promise you'll walk in tomorrow. So don't despise the discomfort. Thank God for it. It means he's preparing you for something that will make the pain worth it. When God is preparing you for a major breakthrough, he will often pull you into a season of divine isolation. It's not rejection, it's redirection. It's not abandonment, it's alignment. God separates you not to punish you, but to protect the purity of what he's building in you. You see, before he reveals you publicly, he hides you privately. Because if you're exposed too soon, the weight of visibility can crush what your character hasn't yet learned to carry. Divine isolation feels lonely, but it's holy. It's the sacred season where God strips away the noise so you can finally hear his voice clearly. When you're constantly surrounded by people, opinions, and distractions, your identity gets shaped by external validation. But when God isolates you, he removes the applause so you learn to walk by conviction, not by confirmation. It's in isolation that you learn who you are without the crowd, without the compliments, without the platform. And that's when God starts whispering the truth about who you are in him. Truths that no one else could ever affirm because they didn't create you. Sometimes God has to take you through isolation to detox your spirit from dependency. You've leaned too long on people who can't see where he's taking you. You've depended on support that was seasonal. And when those people leave, you feel betrayed. But really, God just canceled their access because their presence was interfering with your progress. When you're carrying a divine assignment, not everyone can go with you. Some people are meant to walk with you for a chapter, not a lifetime. And God, in his mercy, will remove them so your future doesn't get contaminated by your past. In divine isolation, God begins to develop you in ways that crowds never could. He teaches you discipline, obedience, and faith without applause. He trains your spirit in silence. He shapes your endurance when no one is watching. It's the wilderness before the promised land, the hidden stage before the platform. That's where he prepares your heart to handle influence, power, and favor with humility. You see, public success without private submission always ends in destruction. Right? God isolates before he elevates. During isolation, it's easy to mistake stillness for stagnation. You may look around and feel like nothing is moving, but what you don't see is that God is working beneath the surface. He's aligning opportunities, maturing your spirit, and protecting you from premature exposure. Isolation is God's classroom. He's teaching you lessons that can't be learned in the crowd. Lessons about trust, about patience, about inner peace. Lessons that prepare you to walk alone when necessary and lead others when called. Don't despise your isolated season. It's not a sign that God forgot you. It's a sign that he's focused on you. The same way a seed must be buried before it grows, you must be hidden before you're revealed. The seed doesn't fight the soil. It trusts that the darkness is part of the process. So when God hides you, stop asking him to bring you out too soon. Let him finish what he started. Because when the time is right, the same God who hid you will reveal you. And no one will be able to deny that it was his hand that elevated you. In divine isolation, your prayers become deeper. Your discernment becomes sharper, and your dependence on God becomes stronger. You stop chasing people and start chasing purpose. You stop looking for validation and start walking in vision. And when you emerge from that season, you'll come out with clarity, authority, and confidence, not in yourself, but in the one who called you. So if God has separated you, if people have walked away, if doors have closed and silence has surrounded you, don't see it as rejection. See it as divine isolation. Because when God isolates you, it's proof that he's incubating something powerful inside you. He's setting you apart so he can set you above. He's removing distractions so he can release direction. The isolation isn't the end, it's the incubation. And when it's time to step into your next season, you'll realize that everything you lost in isolation was nothing compared to what you gained in intimacy with God. When God is preparing you for a major breakthrough, one of the clearest signs is that doors you were sure would open suddenly begin to close. Opportunities you prayed for fall through. Relationships you invested in dissolve. Plans you carefully built collapse right in front of you. And in that moment, it's easy to ask God, why? But what you have to understand is that every closed door is not rejection, it's redirection. God never closes a door to harm you. He closes it to help you. What feels like disappointment is often divine protection in disguise. You see, God sees what you can't. He knows what's on the other side of that door. The things you're not yet ready for, the situations that would drain your spirit, the people who look like opportunity but carry destruction. Sometimes his mercy shows up as a no. We think unanswered prayers mean God isn't listening, but sometimes they mean he's shielding. Because if he gave us everything we asked for when we asked for it, we destroy the very thing we prayed to receive. Closed doors are God's way of redirecting your steps towards something better, something higher, something safer for your destiny. Think about Joseph. He thought his life was over when he was thrown into a pit, betrayed by his brothers, and imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. Every door that could have opened seemed to shut in his face, but what he didn't realize was that those closed doors were divine detours that positioned him for the palace. The pit was preparation. The prison was training. Every closed door pushed him closer to the open one God had already ordained. The same is true for you. What looks like a setback is often a setup. Sometimes God will close a door not because the opportunity is wrong, but because the timing is. A blessing outside of its proper season can become a burden. You might be praying for increase, but God sees that your character still needs development. You might be asking for a relationship, but God knows your healing isn't complete. You might be seeking promotion, but he knows pride is still lurking in your heart, so he closes the door until what's inside of you aligns with what he wants to release to you. God's not yet is not a never. It's an invitation to grow. Closed doors also test your trust. It's easy to believe when everything's working, but real faith is proven when nothing is. When every plan falls apart, when every door slams shut, when every backup option disappears, do you still believe God has a plan? Because that's where spiritual maturity is born. It's in those moments when you have to trust his wisdom over your understanding, his timing over your urgency, and his will over your wants. Closed doors teach you to surrender your agenda and submit to his assignment. Sometimes God closes doors to make sure you don't settle. You were praying for an open door, but he knew that one would keep you small. He had something bigger, but you were ready to stop at good. That's why he let it close, because good is the enemy of great. If that business deal had worked, you might have never discovered your true calling. If that relationship had lasted, you might have missed your purpose partner. If that door had stayed open, you might have been trapped in a season beneath your potential. So when you see a door closed, don't cry over it too long. What's behind that closed door can't compare to what God is preparing to open next. The truth is, sometimes God's greatest blessings are disguised as disappointments. The job you didn't get freed you to pursue the assignment he actually called you to. The relationship that ended made space for the person who's truly aligned with your purpose. The door that closed wasn't a failure, it was divine rerouting. Because God doesn't just order your steps, he orders your stops. He doesn't just guide you through the open ways, he protects you through the blocked ones. So instead of asking, why did this close? Start asking, Lord, what are you redirecting me toward? That shift in perspective changes everything. You begin to see his hand even in your heartbreak. You begin to trust that every no is guiding you to a greater yes. Closed doors remind you that you're not in control, and that's the best place to be, because the one who is in control never makes mistakes. When God closes a door, he's not ending your story, he's editing it. He's rewriting it for your good and his glory. And when the right door opens, you'll see why every other one had to close. You'll realize that what you thought was rejection was actually redirection toward a destiny far greater than you imagined. So don't stand crying at the door God shut. Turn and start walking. Because the same God who closed that one has already prepared another, and when it opens, it will remind you that every delay was divine direction. When you're on the verge of a major breakthrough, one of the first things you'll notice is that the spiritual warfare around you intensifies. Things that were once peaceful suddenly become chaotic. People start misunderstanding. Opportunities seem to slip away. Your emotions are tested, your patience wears thin, and your faith feels like it's hanging by a thread. That's not coincidence, that's confirmation. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on people who aren't advancing. When the battle gets heavier, it's a sign that your next level is closer than ever. You have to remember that spiritual warfare isn't just about what's happening around you, it's about what's happening within you. The closer you get to your breakthrough, the more the enemy attacks your mind, because your thoughts are the battleground where victory begins or ends. He'll whisper lies like, you're not ready, it's not going to happen, or you should give up. But those lies come at the point where your destiny is about to manifest. The pressure increases because the promise is near. The enemy can sense what go. D is about to release in your life, and his only goal is to make you quit before you see it. Great move of God comes with great opposition. The moment you decide to walk in obedience, darkness gets disturbed. The moment you commit to purpose, distraction multiplies. That's because obedience is disruptive. It shifts the atmosphere, breaks generational patterns, and aligns your life with divine order. The enemy knows that if you stay consistent, he can't stop you. So his strategy is to make you weary, doubtful, or fearful enough to stop yourself. That's why your prayer life gets attacked, your relationships get strained, and your peace gets shaken, because the enemy wants to weaken your focus right before God opens the door. But here's the truth. Resistance is proof of value. The devil doesn't fight what isn't a threat. If you were insignificant, he'd leave you alone. The fact that you're under attack means you carry something powerful, something that heaven trusts and hell fears. So instead of asking, why am I going through this? Start asking, what is this trying to stop me from becoming? Because every time the enemy attacks, he unintentionally exposes the area of your life where breakthrough is about to happen. In seasons of spiritual warfare, your response determines your result. You can either collapse under the pressure or use the pressure as fuel for your faith. You have to pray when you feel like quitting, worship when it doesn't make sense, and declare victory when you still see defeat. Because faith isn't proven when it's easy. It's proven when everything is screaming against it. The storm doesn't mean God left you. It means God trusts you enough to stand in it. He knows the battle is forming your spiritual muscles. Every fight is building endurance, sharpening your discernment, and teaching you how to war with wisdom. Sometimes the warfare intensifies, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you finally started doing something right. You've broken old habits, left toxic relationships, and aligned your life with purpose. That's when the enemy panics, because he knows once you see who you really are in Christ, he loses his grip. So he attacks your confidence, your clarity, and your consistency. But you have to remind yourself that the same power that raised Jesus from the dead lives in you. You don't fight for victory. You fight from victory. The battle might be fierce, but it's already won. The key during intense warfare is to stay grounded in God's word. You can't fight spiritual battles with natural weapons. You have to fight lies with truth, fear with faith, and chaos with peace. Every time the enemy comes with an attack, respond with the word. When he says, you're not enough, remind him, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. When he says, you're going to fail, declare, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. When he says, God has forgotten you, speak, he will never leave me nor forsake me. The word of God is not just comfort, it's your weapon. If you can endure the warfare, you'll walk into the win. The pressure you feel is not permanent, it's purposeful. God is allowing the storm to strengthen your spiritual authority. The same battles that are testing you today will become the testimonies that empower others tomorrow. And once the warfare breaks, the blessing will flow. You'll realize that every sleepless night, every tear, every moment of confusion was working together for your elevation. So don't quit in the middle of the fight. The intensity of your warfare is evidence that your breakthrough is near. The devil fights hardest when he knows he's losing ground. Keep standing, keep praying, keep believing. The storm may rage, but remember, you're not alone in it. God is with you, fighting for you and positioning you for victory. And when you come out of this battle, you won't just come out surviving. You'll come out stronger, wiser, and ready to step into the destiny that the warfare was trying to keep you from. When God is preparing you for a major breakthrough, one of the most important things he develops is your character and your faith. Before he changes your situation, he changes you. Because if your capacity doesn't grow with your calling, the very thing you prayed for could crush you. So he starts working in the unseen, refining your heart, testing your motives, and shaping your inner life to match the magnitude of what he's about to release. It's not punishment, it's preparation. God doesn't just want you to reach the next level. He wants you to be able to stay there. Accelerated growth in character and faith often happens in uncomfortable seasons. It's when you're misunderstood, overlooked, or stretched beyond what you think you can handle. That's when God does his deepest work. You learn patience, not when things go smoothly, but when everything takes longer than expected. You learn humility when you have the talent for promotion, but God tells you to wait. You learn trust when every safety net disappears and your only option is to depend on Him. Every delay, every disappointment, every detour is designed to grow you in areas success will later require. When you ask God for a blessing, He often responds with a test. Not to fail you, but to form you, because faith that isn't tested can't be trusted. He'll let you go through circumstances that stretch your belief so you can learn that His word is stronger than your emotions. When the money runs out but the bills are still due, you learn that He's Jehovah Jireh, the God who provides. When doors close but peace remains, you discover that He's the Prince of Peace. When you're rejected but still standing, you realize that He's your defender. These experiences don't weaken your faith, they anchor it. They teach you that God is not just theory, He's truth that stands in every storm. Accelerated growth happens when you stop asking God to change your situation and start asking Him to change you in it. Because real growth isn't about escape, it's about endurance. You begin to see that every challenge is an opportunity to practice the fruit of the Spirit. When people betray you, you practice forgiveness. When things move slowly, you practice patience. When you're tempted to complain, you practice gratitude. Growth doesn't happen in comfort, it happens in confrontation. The confrontation between your will and God's. God will also test your obedience during this growth season. Sometimes He'll ask you to do things that don't make sense, to give when you're low, to serve when you're tired, to trust when you can't trace the outcome. That's how He matures your faith. Because faith that only works when things are visible isn't faith, it's logic. Real faith says, even when I don't see it, I believe it. It's in those moments that your trust deepens and your perspective shifts from why me to use me. Accelerated growth also purifies your motives. You start to care less about impressing people and more about pleasing God. You stop chasing approval and start chasing alignment. You begin to understand that promotion without preparation is a curse, not a blessing. So you surrender your timeline and say, God, I'd rather grow slow and strong than rise fast and fall. That's maturity. That's character being built brick by brick through consistency, obedience, and faith. You'll know God is growing your faith when you stop panicking about what's next and start praising Him for what's now. Because maturity teaches you that every season serves a purpose, even the painful ones, especially the painful ones. You begin to realize that the same God who allowed the struggle is using it to strengthen your spirit. And when you come out of that season, you'll look back and see how far you've come. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. So if you feel like God is stretching you, testing you, or keeping you in a season longer than you expected, don't resist it. That's not delay. It's development. He's growing your faith faster than your circumstances can catch up. He's preparing your heart to carry more influence, more responsibility, and more glory without collapsing under the weight. Because when the breakthrough arrives, He doesn't just want you to receive it, He wants you to represent Him through it. The growth may hurt, but it's holy. The process may be painful, but it's purposeful. You are being refined, not rejected, molded, not mismanaged. God is building a version of you that's ready for what you've been praying for. And when that growth is complete, you'll step into your breakthrough not as the same person who started the journey, but as the one who's been strengthened, stretched, and sanctified to sustain it. When God is preparing you for a major breakthrough, one of the clearest signs is when unexpected opportunities begin to appear and divine connections start showing up in your life. These moments don't come from coincidence, they come from covenant. God begins aligning people, places, and possibilities in ways you couldn't have orchestrated on your own. It's like the pieces of your life suddenly start fitting together, not because of your strategy, but because of His sovereignty. After you've gone through the discomfort, isolation, closed doors, and warfare, God begins to shift things in your favor. You'll start to notice small signs of alignment, random encounters that turn into opportunities, conversations that seem too perfectly timed, favor that opens doors you didn't even knock on. These are not accidents. This is divine coordination. God is showing you that He hasn't forgotten your faithfulness. While you were waiting, He was working. While you were trusting, He was arranging. And now, when the time is right, He starts releasing what He's been preparing behind the scenes. Divine connections are never random. They're strategic. God will send the right people at the right moment to help you accomplish what you couldn't do alone. Sometimes it's a mentor who sees what's inside you before you do. Sometimes it's a friend who speaks a word that reignites your faith. Sometimes it's a stranger who opens a door you didn't even know existed. These are divine assignments wrapped in human form. And when they show up, you'll know it because the conversation feels effortless, the timing feels perfect, and the connection carries peace. But here's the thing. Divine connections are only released when your character is ready to sustain them. God won't send kingdom partnerships to an unprepared vessel. That's why he took you through the refining seasons. So when he places the right people in your life, you won't sabotage the connection with insecurity or pride. You'll be able to discern who's sent by God and who's sent by distraction. Because not every opportunity is divine, and not every connection is kingdom. You must have spiritual discernment to know the difference. When opportunities begin to unfold, they often come suddenly. One phone call, one meeting, one yes from the right person can change everything. But don't mistake sudden manifestation for instant success. What looks sudden to others took years of preparation in private. The world may say that happened overnight, but you'll know it took obedience, prayer, consistency, and faith to get there. Divine timing feels sudden, but it's always strategic. God was setting it up all along. He was just waiting for the season to align. And when those divine connections enter your life, honor them, steward them well, because sometimes God doesn't send provision directly. He sends people who carry the provision. The connection is the conduit. That's why you must stay humble, teachable, and ready. When you carry the right spirit, God can trust you with relationships that multiply your destiny. The wrong spirit will repel divine helpers, but the right heart will attract them effortlessly. You'll know you're walking in divine alignment when doors open that your resume can't explain. When favor follows you without manipulation. When people start endorsing your purpose without you asking. That's God saying, you've passed the test. Now I can trust you with influence. And once that flow begins, it won't stop. One opportunity will lead to another. One introduction will open 10 more. Divine momentum will take over, and all you'll be able to say is, only God could have done this. So don't be surprised when things start happening fast. After years of waiting, God can shift everything in a moment. That's how breakthrough works. It may take years to prepare, but only seconds to manifest. The same God who hid you in one season will highlight you in the next. The same doors that once refused to open will swing wide because now you're walking in divine timing. The key is to stay aligned, not anxious. You don't have to chase what's meant for you. Divine opportunities are drawn to obedience. When your heart is in the right place, favor will find you. When your spirit stays humble, help will locate you. And when your faith stays firm, connections will appear at just the right moment to push you into your next dimension. God is the master of divine orchestration. He's not just blessing you, he's positioning you. He's connecting you with the people, resources, and opportunities that will carry you to your purpose. You don't have to force it. You don't have to manipulate it. Just stay faithful, stay ready, and stay open. Because when the breakthrough season arrives, divine connections will surround you, opportunities will unfold effortlessly, and you'll realize that every delay was just God's way of preparing the perfect alignment for your destiny. Every season of preparation, every moment of pain, every test of faith, it all points to one divine truth. God is getting you ready for something greater than you can imagine. The discomfort wasn't to destroy you, it was to develop you. The isolation wasn't to break you, it was to build you. The closed doors weren't rejection, they were redirection. The warfare wasn't punishment, it was proof that your purpose carries power. And every trial that demanded your trust was designed to grow your faith so you could stand strong when the breakthrough finally comes. You see, God never wastes a season. Everything you've walked through was intentional. The tears, the waiting, the silence, they were all ingredients in the recipe of your destiny. He used the pain to purify your motives, the process to strengthen your endurance, and the pressure to prepare your promise. The hand of God has been guiding you the whole time, even when you couldn't see it. You thought you were being delayed, but you were being developed. You thought you were being buried, but you were being planted. And now you're standing on the edge of manifestation. The very things that once felt like obstacles are now becoming the foundation of your breakthrough. The lessons you learned in the dark will sustain you in the light. The battles that once scared you will now serve as your testimony. You are about to see the fruit of every seed you sowed in faith, every prayer you whispered in tears, every moment you chose to keep believing when nothing made sense. So don't let weariness rob you of what's next. Don't let doubt convince you walk away when you're this close. The same God who started the work in you is faithful to complete it. Your breakthrough isn't coming, it's already in motion. Heaven has already signed off on your victory. Your job now is to stay in position, stay in faith, and stay expectant. Because when God finally reveals what he's been preparing, you won't have to force it, chase it, or beg for it. It will find you. Doors will open, favor will follow, and everything that once made you question his timing will make you thank him for his wisdom. The process was preparation. The waiting was protection. And the pain was proof that you're destined for something extraordinary. This is your moment of becoming. This is your season of unveiling. And when your breakthrough arrives, the world will see what God saw all along, that you were never waiting in vain. You were being shaped for greatness, refined for purpose, and positioned for promise. Hold your head high, keep your faith anchored, and remember, the God who prepared you is the same God who will prosper you. Your breakthrough isn't just near, it's here.